Commissioner Willers.
I'm going to begin with just a simple comment, and that is as it related to the economic impact to our community. A lot has been made about the income to our schools. I'm fortunate to have lived here for the entire life of my children who are now going off to college. Our schools have never suffered in our community for lack of funds. In fact, I'm proud of the fact that our community contributes to our schools. And I'm proud that we aren't dependent upon tourism for their funding. My kids got a #1 education in the public school system here. They're going out into the world well prepared, and they're doing things. And what I hope for is that they will have the ability to return home because they love this place. Currently, it would be very difficult for them to do that other than to live with us. So that being said, I'll also make a comment that Commissioner Robertson and I met this weekend to discuss this project. I wanted to disclose that. We had a good conversation. The project is complicated. We shared ideas and comments, and it was nice to have the ability to do that. I've also met with the representatives very early in the process when they showed the plan that was entirely residential project. So what I'm about to say will not take them by surprise because it's basically what I said to them before. As a planning commissioner, I believe that my primary responsibility is to implement the general plan of Sonoma. The applicants have the responsibility, if they want their project approved, to propose projects that meet the intent of the general plan and the regulations of the development code. I don't believe that this project meets the spirit or intent of the general plan for this property. The property seems to me to be designed in a way that says, let's try and let's see what happens. And I'm led to that conclusion because the proposal is so far from the basic intent of the general plan and requires many variances from the development code. I believe the project simply fails at a conceptual level, and therefore, to be fair to the applicant, I'm going to choose not to discuss the details. Because to suggest modifications to this proposal might lead you to believe that I would support its approval. And as long as it contains the hotel, this proposal is a non-starter for me. What I see as the intent of the general plan in the mixed-use zone is what it says, and that is to allow higher density housing types, such as apartments and condominiums, in conjunction with commercial and office development in order to increase housing opportunities. It doesn't say anything about bringing hotels to our community to increase economic impact for our community. The housing element additionally states that mixed-use designation is also intended to provide additional opportunities for affordable housing, especially for low and very low income. Now, what I believe the housing element means there is that there's an affordable market rate house also that comes along with high density development. It doesn't mean that we're subsidizing affordable housing. It means that we're building smaller units that are more affordable in our community and remain that way because of their size, because they're higher density, and because they have a limited value because of the type of product they are. But that continues to be housing that is affordable in our community. I actually live in one of those developments, and it's proven because the townhouses that are part of that development trade at the market rate, but they trade at the lower end of the market. And they provide housing for single mothers with children. They provide housing for retired seniors. And they provide housing that is starter housing in our community. So I think there's a place for that. And I think this property, having been involved in the remaking of our general plan, having been involved in the development of our development code, the intent of this property through its mixed use was to identify its existing use historically. The intent of it in a mixed use for a new development was to identify it, as is pointed out in our housing element, as a housing opportunity site. When that housing opportunity designation was put on this property in the mid-1995s, it was the intent at that point to bring forward a site that would allow high-density housing to be placed on it and to make the community aware that that was going to happen. In fact, there are 3 current mixed-use sites in our housing element that are designated as housing opportunity sites. The Broadway site, which will become or will have a proposal for an affordable housing project. This site, which is the largest of all 3, and a site on West Spain Street or West Napa Street, which is basically the Christmas tree lot site. Those 3 sites represent almost half of the affordable housing allotment in our arena, or of almost half of the housing number in our arena and housing element. To lose any of them, in my opinion, would be detrimental to affordable housing in this community. And again, what I mean by affordable housing is not subsidized affordable housing. What I mean is housing that comes in at a market rate that isn't $1 million homes or higher. I believe actually that the commission should finally follow through on this designation in the housing element and follow through and designate these properties housing opportunity and then rezone them as residential opportunity, because that action will clarify the intent of the community and require residential only proposals, as well as ensure densities of 15 units per acre or more. Neighborhood compatibility. This project, in my opinion, ignores the neighborhood context and again simply proposes what will make their investment pro forma work. There appears to be no sincere attempt to mitigate the proposal's impact on the neighborhood. Instead, the applicant requests exceptions and variances. I would not be able to make the findings to allow those exceptions and variances. I do not believe this is a problem with zoning. I believe it is a failure in this proposal to take the intent of the zoning and issues of compatibility seriously. I also think that there is an inherent problem brought about by the joining of these 2 separate parcels, and that is that what it does is it allows for a bigger project. And that in and of itself is a further incompatibility in the neighborhood. So, as many of the neighbors have said in their letters, what they hope for is a primarily residential development with a significant affordability component, higher densities and smaller units. I also do not think that this is the appropriate location for a hotel, as I said earlier, of any scale. If there is any commercial component, it should be a neighborhood serving as stated in the general plan and the development code. And David, could you use the overhead projector? What I'd like to do is demonstrate. I did a little bit of Photoshop, because what I'd like to do is demonstrate that the zoning of this property is actually appropriate if the development comes forward appropriately. And so what I've done is I've taken a project that the city built. It's actually 43 units of housing. It's done in a very kind of open plan system. So this is the Valley Oak project that's out on the highway. It's 43 units of 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom, and 3-bedroom apartments in this case, as well as a common building, and it's parking. And as you can see, it fits on the property that is the Peterson and the properties to the north of it. It fits on it with a buffer to First Street East and with a buffer to the buildings next to it. So number 2. So that project's actually above the allowed density on the current zoning of the property. This is 40 units approximately. What the 40 unit change allows you to see is that there's more space, open space in between. The buildings are still pulled back from First Street, still have matching setbacks on the east side, and still has a common building. So what this demonstration is that there is a maximum density project that can be compatible with the neighborhood. It's just simply a choice on the part of the development team or not, and the choice of this community and in my opinion, the Planning Commission.
Thank you.